Imagine a scene similar to that faced by the disciples on the Sea of Galilee, as recounted in Mark 4 verses 37 to 41. The disciples, experienced fishermen, were caught in a fierce storm while Jesus slept peacefully. Like them, our protagonist, Anna, faces her own storm of doubts and challenges as she prepares for a transformative journey. In a forgotten corner of the world, a mountain stood imposingly, touching the heavens. Known as the Mountain of Faith, this elevation was not only a physical challenge, but also a spiritual one for those who ventured to climb it. Nearby villagers believed that at the top of the mountain was an ancient shrine that granted peace and clarity to those who reached it. Our story begins with Anna, a young girl full of dreams and doubts. Despite her youth, Anna had faced many trials in her life. Orphaned at a young age, she was raised by her grandmother, a wise woman who always spoke of the Mountain of Faith. When you feel lost, my child, remember that the mountain is always there, waiting for you with answers, her grandmother used to tell her. One evening, after a long day of work in the fields, Anna sat by the fire in the small cabin she shared with her grandmother. Thoughts of uncertainty and fear came over her. Life in the village was hard and the chances of a better future seemed unattainable. Looking up at the stars, she remembered her grandmother's words and made a decision: she would climb the Mountain of Faith. Prepared with basic provisions and an old blanket, Anna said goodbye to her grandmother at dawn. Remember, child, faith is not the absence of doubt, but the courage to go forward in spite of it, the old woman told her as she hugged her. The ascent began in the lush forests at the foot of the mountain. Birdsong and rustling leaves provided company and a strange comfort. As he advanced, the terrain became steeper and rockier. The shadows lengthened, and the air grew colder. On her second day of ascent, Anna found a small clearing where she decided to rest. As she ate some bread, she saw an old man walking towards her. He had a long white beard and eyes that sparkled with wisdom. "Greetings, young traveler," the old man said. "What brings you to these heights?" And explained her quest for peace and clarity. The old man smiled and sat down beside her. "Many years ago, I, too, set out on this journey," he began to recount. "At every step, I faced my fears and doubts, and in every challenge I found a lesson. The mountain is not only climbed with your feet, but with your heart." The elder told him of the importance of perseverance and faith in oneself. "Every rock and every precipice are tests. Not to stop you, but to strengthen your spirit," he said before taking his leave, leaving her a small white flower. "This flower is a symbol of purity and hope. Keep it, it will remind you of the beauty you can find even in the most difficult places." With a lighter heart and the flower in her pocket, Anna continued her ascent. As she climbed, the landscapes changed. Lush forests gave way to steep slopes and icy streams. Each step was more difficult than the last, but the old man's words echoed in her mind, giving her strength. On the third night, Anna found shelter in a cave. As she gazed at the fire she had lit, she thought of her grandmother and all the challenges she had overcome so far. The mountain was not just a physical challenge, it was a metaphor for her life, her struggles and victories. In the distance, the howl of a wolf broke the silence, reminding him of the loneliness and danger, but also of the strength and resilience he had found on his journey. Anna woke at dawn, her body ached with fatigue, but her spirit was determined. With each step she took, she felt she was approaching not only the top of the mountain, but a deeper truth within herself. The journey was arduous, but she remembered Jesus' words in Matthew 11 verses 28 to 30, "Come to me, all you who labor and are heavy laden, and I will give you rest. Take my yoke upon you and learn from me, for I am gentle and humble in heart, and you will find rest for your souls. For my yoke is easy, and my burden is light." On her way, Hannah met a young shepherd boy tending his flock. She stopped to rest and talked with him about her journey. The shepherd, named David, told her about his own struggles and how he had found comfort in prayer and meditation. "Faith is like tending these sheep," he told him. "It requires patience, dedication and trust that, even if we don't always see the way clear, God is always with us. David shared with Hannah his favorite Bible passage, Psalm 23 verse 4, "Yeah, though I walk through the valley of the shadow of death, I will fear no evil, for thou wilt be with me, thy rod and thy staff, they comfort me." This verse resonated deeply with Hannah, giving her a new perspective on her journey and her faith. As she progressed, Hannah encountered greater and greater challenges. On one particularly steep stretch, she slipped and almost fell, but managed to cling to a rock. Trembling, she picked herself up and remembered the words of the Apostle Paul in Philippians 4 verse 13, "I can do all things through Christ who strengthens me." With this renewed conviction, she continued her ascent. On the fourth night, Hannah came to a small stone altar in a mountain clearing. She knelt and prayed, asking for strength and guidance. At that moment, she felt a deep and comforting peace, as if an invisible hand was holding her. She remembered the passage from Isaiah 40 verse 31, "But those who wait for the Lord shall have new strength, they shall mount up with wings like eagles, they shall run, and not grow weary, they shall walk, and not faint." She continued her journey the next day, more determined than ever. The mountaintop was now in sight, but so was the realization that this journey had been more than a physical ascent, it had been a spiritual transformation. Each step she took toward the top was another step closer to understanding her own faith and purpose. Finally, and reached the top of the mountain of faith. Before her stood the ancient sanctuary, a place of serenity and spirituality. She knelt in prayer, thanking God for strength and guidance during her journey. She felt a deep connection to the divine, a sense of peace and clarity she had never experienced before. With a heart full of gratitude and determination, Hannah stood in front of the ancient shrine at the top of the mountain of faith. The cool air of the altitude enveloped her as she gazed at the landscape spread out before her, green valleys and blue mountains under a sky that seemed infinite. Every detail seemed to resonate with a peace and a presence she felt deeply. She approached the stone altar and knelt again, feeling a mixture of excitement and serenity. She closed her eyes and began to pray, giving thanks for the road she had traveled, for the lessons she had learned, and for the strength she had received in times of trial. She thanked God for each step that had brought her there and for each person, like David, who had crossed her path to inspire her and strengthen her faith. As she stood there, silent and communing with the divine, she remembered the words of Jeremiah 29 verse 11, "For I know the thoughts that I think toward you, saith the Lord, thoughts of peace, and not of evil, to give you an expected end." Hannah felt a deep certainty that this journey had not only been a physical challenge, but also an answer to her deepest spiritual longings. After a while, she stood up and walked around the shrine, admiring the view and absorbing the tranquility of the place. In that moment, she felt as if each step she took was an affirmation of her renewed faith and connection to the divine. Each breath seemed to charge her with a new and peaceful energy, as if she was touching the very essence of life and faith. She decided to stay a while longer at the top, reflecting on the meaning of this journey in her life. He remembered the words of Romans 8 verse 28, "And we know that all things work together for good to them that love God, to them who are the called according to his purpose." Every challenge and every victory now had a clear purpose in his mind and heart. At sunset, as the sun set over the horizon and painted the sky in shades of gold and pink, and felt her heart filled with peace and gratitude. She knew that this trip had marked a turning point in her spiritual life and that she would carry with her the lessons learned and strength found for a long time. With one last look at the shrine and a serene smile on her face, and began the descent of the mountain of faith. Although the path of life would continue to present challenges, she now carried with her the certainty that, with faith and perseverance, she could always find light and purpose every step of the way. The descent from the mountain of faith was as contemplative as it was upward. And every step down was an opportunity to reflect on her spiritual journey and the revelations she had experienced at the top. The words of the Psalms and epistles echoed in her mind, strengthening her resolve and calming any anxiety that might arise. on every stretch of the descent, and found occasion to apply the lessons she had learned. She would pause at times to observe the flora and fauna along the way, remembering how God's creation reflected His glory and perfection. During these pauses, the song of the birds and the murmur of the wind in the trees seemed to whisper to her that the divine presence would never leave her. Reaching the foot of the mountain, and paused to look back one last time at the summit she had conquered with faith and determination. Every rock and path now bore witness to her inner strength and the divine guidance she had received every step of the way. As she walked back to her community, Anna was filled with gratitude and a deep sense of purpose. She knew that her spiritual journey did not end at the mountaintop, but would continue in every aspect of her daily life. She remembered the words of Matthew 5 verse 16, "Let your light so shine before men, that they may see your good works, and glorify your Father which is in heaven." She decided to live each day as a living testimony of her faith in action, sharing the lessons learned with those who crossed her path. Upon arriving home, Anna took a moment to write about her experience in her spiritual journal. She wanted to remember every detail of how God had worked in her life during this transformational journey. She felt an urge to share her story with others, to inspire them to seek their own path of faith and perseverance. If you have been inspired by Anna's story and want to explore more about how faith can transform lives, we invite you to subscribe to our channel where we share more stories and spiritual reflections. Click here to watch the following transformational video with powerful and healing prayers to continue enriching your spiritual journey with God.